Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to tackle a really tough and important story, the decades-long, complicated history of LGBTQ+ students at Brigham Young University. It is absolutely a story of faith, but it's also one of deep conflict and a relentless fight just to belong.
And we're going to start with this quote, because honestly, it's chilling. For decades, this wasn't some hypothetical. This was a sanctioned reality on the BYU campus. The university called it a cure for homosexuality.
So how in the world did this happen? Well, to get it, you really have to understand the institution at the heart of all this. Brigham Young University, or BYU, is owned and run by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And its rules, its culture, everything has always been completely intertwined with church doctrine.
All right, let's get into it. This first period, we're talking the 50s through the 70s. This was, without a doubt, the most severe. It was an era defined by official policies to keep gay students out and painful, aggressive attempts to change their sexual orientation.
And the main tool they used back then? It was something called aversion therapy. The idea behind it was honestly brutally simple: to literally condition a person's body to associate same-sex attraction with actual physical pain.
And look, this wasn't some abstract idea. It was a very real, very methodical process. Survivors talk about being hooked up to electrodes. An image of a man would appear, and if they didn't look away fast enough, zap, a painful jolt of electricity. Then a picture of a woman would appear, and the pain would stop. Relief. It's classical conditioning, just in the most awful way imaginable.
You know, it's easy to think of this as some short-lived, terrible mistake, but it wasn't. This on-campus program ran for over 30 years, from 1959 all the way into the mid-1990s. And what's worse, students were sent there by the very people they were supposed to trust: their counselors, their church leaders, and the honor code office.
And this is where things get, well, kind of tricky. You see this clear conflict between the official story and what students actually went through. Years later, in 2011, the university put out this really carefully worded statement denying that vomit-inducing therapy ever happened in the counseling center. But survivors say, yeah, it happened, just in the basement of the psychology department.
And these policies, this whole environment, it had absolutely devastating real-world consequences. In just one single year, 1965, the same year the BYU president said he didn't want the campus contaminated by homosexuals, there were reported 5 suicides among gay male students.
So as we move into the next era, you see a shift. The overt physical cures start to fade away, but they're replaced with something just as damaging in its own way: a tangled web of confusing, contradictory rules that created this constant state of fear and uncertainty.
Yeah, the new battleground became the honor code. That's BYU's super strict code of conduct, and you can see how it just kept twisting and turning. One minute, there's a total ban. Then the ban is lifted, but you can't act gay. Then in '76, there's a purge where they're literally sending campus security to spy on off-campus gay bars to get students expelled. By 2007, it settled into this really difficult position. Okay, it's not a violation to be gay, but any physical expression of it, even holding hands, could get you kicked out. And if you want a snapshot of what it felt like to be on campus then, just look at these numbers from a 1997 student poll. It is pretty shocking. Almost half the student body didn't think gay students should even be allowed there, even if they followed all the rules. And nearly 80% said they wouldn't be willing to live with a gay roommate.
This quote from a former student just says it all, doesn't it? Imagine living like that, being afraid to even hug a friend because you're constantly worried someone is watching, judging, ready to report you. The stress must have been just unbelievable.
Okay, so that brings us to the modern era, the last decade or so. And this is where the story really flips. It's not just about what the institution is doing to students anymore. Now it's about the students fighting back, out in the open. And a huge catalyst for this new wave of activism happened in 2021. A top church official, Jeffrey Holland, gave this speech and told BYU faculty they needed to take up their muskets to defend the church's doctrine on marriage. For LGBTQ+ students and their allies, wow, that language felt like a direct threat, a call to arms against them.
And the student response was incredible. It was loud, it was public, and it was brave. They organized Rainbow Days, covered the sidewalks with chalk messages of love and support. And then, this was a big one, they lit up the giant Y on the mountain overlooking campus in rainbow colors.
They held the first Pride March at BYU, and then, in 2022, the first ever officially approved on-campus LGBTQ+ demonstration. But the administration pushed back, and it was a very direct pushback. Remember that rainbow Y on the mountain? Well, not long after that happened, BYU released a brand new policy. Guess what it said? No more demonstrations of any kind on Y Mountain. Period. It was a clear reaction.
So, after all of this, the cures, the codes, the rebellion, where does that leave BYU today? Well, the truth is, this chapter is far from over. The campus is still a place of really deep, unresolved tension.
I mean, just look at the difference here. The official language has done a complete 180. You go from a university president in 1965 saying he doesn't want the campus contaminated by gay people, to the school in 2021 opening an office of belonging. On paper, that's a huge shift. But the question is, how deep does it really go?
Because right now, things are still really tense. The federal government tried to investigate BYU's policies, but that was dismissed because of the school's religious exemptions. You still have protests and counter-protests. LGBTQ+ students still report being harassed and called slurs. It all boils down to this one core conflict. How do you balance the school's deeply held religious doctrine with students who are just asking for a safe place to learn and, well, to belong?
And really, that's the big question this whole story leaves us with, isn't it? It's a question not just for BYU, but for any institution deeply rooted in doctrine and tradition. How can a place like that evolve to meet a new generation's profound, powerful, and persistent call for belonging?